Good morning, everybody. I suppose I don't know when you're watching this, but it is morning for me here. Really excited to get started with week one of the LinkedIn Leads Masterclass and kicking things off here with the DM Domino System. Now, you might be asking, why are we starting off with the DMs? You'll understand my reasoning shortly here, and I'll elaborate on it. But quite frankly, I think sending DMs is the most powerful thing you can do on LinkedIn. It is more important than posting content. It is more important than posting comments if your goal is to generate leads. I'll walk you through a case study a little while down in the system with a client that I have written direct messaging scripts for who has been able to add 15 to 20 million dollars in assets under management for his financial advisory practice strictly by sending DMs. So DMs are the highest leverage way to add leads and add clients on LinkedIn. And the other reason we start with DMs is because a lot of people are averse to it, right? It's a necessary lift, but it's a lift that a lot of people hesitate to make. They don't really want to do it. They feel conflict, they feel resistance. So the more we feel that, the more we want to lean into it. So for those reasons, we start with direct messaging, we learn how to do DMing, and then for the next 8 weeks, every single week, we are going to apply the DM Domino system to see the best results. So before we start, I'm going to make you take three bitter pills. First, when it comes to converting clients in the DMs, there is no magic bullet. Second, taking the time to do this properly works. And third, it takes time to do this properly, right? Figuring out the right DM approach for your specific offer is just that. It's figuring it out. Some offers are best sold by just cranking up the volume, blasting out a case study, and playing the numbers game, right? A shotgun approach. Some offers or lead generations are best sold by being very tactical, very targeted, very nurturing, right? Kind of the sniper rifle approach. But really, the best DM strategy is one that manages to be both specific and scalable. And we're going to talk about how to do that here. So just please, as we go into this, remember that it does take work. But just like anything else that takes work, most people are not willing to do it. So that clears the path wide open for you to succeed. I love this. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Alex Lieberman. He founded and sold Morning Brew, a business newsletter back when he was at the University of Michigan. And sold Morning Brew for $75 million. Guy never has to work again a day in his life. And he posted this tweet early in 2025 where he said, no matter how successful I am, I will never be above lobbing in LinkedIn cold DMs like it's my day job. Guys, sales requires outreach. If you want to get leads, you have to start conversations with people. Again, we will talk about generating inbound leads, getting that flywheel spinning, how to do that by week 8 of this program. But we are starting with DMs for a reason. If you have been up to this point averse about sending DMs, it's time to embrace it. This is one of the most high leverage triggers you can pull on LinkedIn. So psychologically, it feels like 9 times out of 10, people struggle to sell because they don't want to come across as salesy or pushy. Right, here's another uncomfortable truth for you, which actually is our fourth uncomfortable truth. But if you want to sell, you have to make sales, right? Here's another tweet that I loved. It's remarkable how many people with very average skill sets achieve great success in life simply because they don't mind the awkwardness of asking people for things. Like it or not, being pushy often pays big. Right, like we just said, the end goal for all of us is to create inbound leads, and we'll talk about how to do that. But relying strictly on inbound makes things unnecessarily hard on yourself. You are far, far more likely to get a lot of business through an outbound strategy, like the DM Domino system, than you are strictly relying on inbound leads. In general, I don't like mindset advice. I think it's a cop out for people who don't have like real actionable advice to offer. But sales is one of those few instances where I do think mindset advice is valid. So before I started this career path as a ghostwriter, I was in finance for 6 years, and I'd pick up the phone every single day and I'd make 30 to 80 outbound dials. And a lot of those dials were cold calls. And for the first couple of years, I really struggled with cold calls. My mindset was terrible. I was prematurely disqualifying myself before I picked up the phone every single time. I'd think, this person's busy. This person doesn't want to hear from me. They don't need what I'm selling. All that's going to happen is they're going to pick up the phone, they're going to ignore me, and they're going to hang up. So why do I even bother? And one day I talked to the guy that was mentoring me about this, and he gave me some great advice. He said, look, man, every time you pick up the phone, tell yourself these two things. One, this person wants to hear from me. In fact, they're waiting for my call. And two, this person can't do any less business with me. Remember, if you genuinely think your service is helping someone, you're really not selling. You're just helping, right? And you're actually doing the other person a disservice by not being persistent. If you don't think you can help, then you're selling snake oil and you have no reason to reach out to that person in the first place. And to make things even easier, you're already living in your worst case scenario, right? With every prospect, your worst case scenario is essentially the same. They do zero business with you. Right now, every prospect is doing zero business with you. They can't do any less business than zero. Quite literally, you can only go up. Right? The long accepted rule of thumb is that it generally takes about 8 touch points to make a sale. It's a bit of a generalization, but like we see in this screenshot right here, that generalization assumes each prospect is at the same level of trust, awareness, and buying stage. All right, so you look right here, it says our research suggests that in 2025, the actual number of touch points before a sale varies between 1 and 50, depending on the prospect's buying stage. And then it breaks down, cold, warm, inactive customers. And so we know that like this 8 touch point thing isn't necessarily true, especially if you've been creating content on LinkedIn already. Every time you make a post, every impression that you get from a potential prospect is a touch point. So we don't always know where the people within our LinkedIn funnel fall in terms of how many touch points they've had. Some people already trust you. A lot of people are ready to buy from you. They just don't know how, or you haven't really given them a chance to yet. And we'll talk about all of that and how to make sure you're doing that in the LinkedIn Leads playbook. But the key takeaway right here that I want to make is that the magic is in the follow-up, right? You don't have to be pushy. You don't have to be salesy, but you do have to get comfortable with following up with people. Who cares, right? You can help them and they can't do any less business with you. So this is a little controversial, but I wholeheartedly believe it, right? Almost everybody who teaches LinkedIn growth will tell you the same thing. They'll say, if you want to grow, comment on other people's posts. And they're not wrong necessarily. They're just misguided, right? Commenting will help you grow faster. We'll talk about, all of my commenting strategy and how it's helped me grow quite a bit on LinkedIn. But rarely will commenting help you sell faster. We'll cover this in more detail later, but most creators on LinkedIn are not on LinkedIn to buy from other people. They're on LinkedIn to grow their accounts, to sell their services to other people. And so for me and a lot of my clients, the people that end up becoming customers or clients are people who never engaged with their content before. Almost always, it's somebody who's in the funnel, who they don't see, who comes out of the blue, or somebody they reach out to with a DM. So while commenting will help grow your account, which is very important, you would actually be better off only sending DMs and never commenting if your only goal was to make money on LinkedIn. I referenced this earlier, but again, I worked with a financial advisor who closed 15 to 20 million strictly from DM scripts I wrote for him. Now, he sent them out at a very high volume, and he was very consistent and very good at sticking to the strategy. But we never created content for him. He never sent comments. He just DM'd. Now we're going to start creating content together and ramping up that inbound process as well. And I'll share with you the DMs that we use with him and how you can implement your own offer into it. So look, more often than not, if you're struggling to get clients on LinkedIn, you just need to go send more DMs or tweak your DM strategy. Most people do not do it with consistency. They try it for a couple of days, they don't necessarily see results, and they fall off. Guys, it's consistency and volume. Right, and that's why, again, the DM domino system is the first part of this masterclass. Before content, before engagement strategy. There are plenty of people who have gotten business on LinkedIn without even having a profile picture, literally, because they had a good DM strategy. So we're going to start weeks 1 and 2 by sending DMs, and we're never going to stop. We're going to keep doing it 3, 4, weeks 5, week 6, week 7, week 8. As long as you are in the LinkedIn Leads program, I will be on you to send DMs. If you take off from the program after 8 weeks, you better be on yourself to send DMs. The more DMs you send, the more money you will make. Full stop. So the DM domino system is taught in 3 different forms. What you want to do is test really each one and choose the approach that best matches your personality, your offer, and your audience type, right? Some of these approaches are better for specific types of offers. And, people can tell when you're doing things that don't align with your personality or aren't authentic to you, right? So a big part of this is comfort, what you feel is best suited to your offer and your personality style. So we have 3 different things. We have social selling, we have proof selling, and we have what I call the evergreen sequence. So social selling is exactly what it sounds like. You're building relationships with people through the DMs, you're asking thoughtful questions, you're positioning yourself as a solution to the problems your ideal client profile. We'll use the acronym ICP quite a bit throughout the LinkedIn Leads program, but you're positioning yourself as a solution to the problems your ICP is facing. Proof selling, our second option, is what you'll see a lot of people on LinkedIn call pitch slapping. People on LinkedIn love to make a big deal about it. Problem is, it works quite well. You can still do this thoughtfully and tactfully, but essentially the idea is you are getting your offer in front of someone right off the bat, as opposed to building a relationship with them before presenting them with your offer. Again, we'll talk about the different types of offers that pitch slapping or proof selling works a little bit better with. But personally, if I ever book a call with somebody from LinkedIn, it is almost always because they put their offer in front of me right away via proof selling. It addressed a pain point that I had. It showed they had the solution. I'm interested. I'll hop on a call. And third is the evergreen sequence. Now, this is more akin to proof selling, but it can be really useful if you work in an industry where specific case studies are hard to share. Maybe you have client NDAs or don't want to disclose too much about what you've done with other clients. Or if you're in an industry where your client desires and pain points vary dramatically. So again, we're going to break down how to use all 3 of these below, but I encourage you to experiment with each of them, see which ones resonate the most with your audience, see which ones work the best with your offer. Look, marketing and sales is A/B testing, A/B testing, A/B testing. Test, 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 track, 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 see what works. Now, each domino represents a step that leads naturally to the next one. This will create momentum in your conversations that build toward converting your prospects into leads. And keep in mind, for the purposes of our program, a lead is defined as anyone who agrees to take your next step. Could be hopping on a call, could be looking at your offer, could be a whole lot of different things. Okay, so let's start with social selling. Social selling is best for relationship-based businesses, complex services, and then people who are naturally conversational. right? The drawback to social selling is that it takes a little while longer, and it's more difficult to do at scale. But a lot of the folks that I work with, again, my primary clients are in commercial real estate and in finance and have these relationship type businesses and these demand gen type services. And that's where social selling can do really well because obviously people are trusting you with their assets and with their money, and it's not quite as easy as just slapping a pitch onto them. So this section is going to focus entirely on the concept of social selling. The biggest key to social selling is almost comically simple. Just act like a normal human being. There's this weird thing on LinkedIn and writing online in general where people get really stilted and awkward and corporate and they start to write really robotically. There's no need. Be you. You know, one of the things I do, like when I text people, I'll send 4 or 5 messages in a row that are really short as opposed to sending one long paragraph. Do that on LinkedIn, right? Like you're texting a friend. Be normal. Use shorthand. Say ha ha. Do these sorts of things. Be a regular human being. Just because you're on LinkedIn and writing on the internet doesn't mean you have to talk about the solutions that you're committed to and how you can find natural synergies between people. Just be normal. People want to do business with people they like, right? So I can't harp on that enough. Always return to that. Be very conversational. So within LinkedIn leads, we identify 5 different types of people that you can apply the DM domino system to. So our first domino here is smart lead selection. Now, each type of these 5 different types of people is going to have slight little tweaks, but the core principles will remain the same. So first, we have profile viewers. Second, people who comment on your content. Third, sales navigator prospects. Fourth, ICP. Again, your ideal client profile commenters. People that comment on your competitors or the posts of other industry leaders in your area. Or 5, warm connections who have turned cold. So if you go back through your DMs and you look at people you've talked to in the past, if you've been on LinkedIn for any length of time, I guarantee you, there are opportunities out there in your DMs if you go back through them and restart old conversations. And we'll talk about how to do that. So again, keep in mind, this is all within the context right now of our social selling, right? Number 1 out of 3. So the second domino you're going to push over once you have determined which type of person you're going to reach out to is just the initial engagement, right? So if you're already connected to somebody, the initial engagement domino is a simple DM. You're already connected, so you don't have to make that connection. You'll navigate here. It wants you to send without a note. I don't know why that one's highlighted in blue. I think more people probably click it. Go to add a note, and then you're going to write your initial engagement message, which we'll talk about. You can also send in-mails to people you aren't connected with, but there's a limit to how many in-mails you can send. And most people's natural selling defenses go up when they see in-mails. I almost never use them unless I'm really shooting my shot at somebody super, super high level and I want to get their attention. But I literally don't think I've ever gotten a response from an in-mail. I don't think they're very effective. So keep in mind that most people get about 200 LinkedIn connection requests a week. It can vary depending on your account size and your account activity. Like if you were brand new and started a LinkedIn account yesterday, you probably wouldn't get the full 200 connection requests, but if you've been around for a while, you will likely get that many. Use them all. Use them all wisely. As you're approaching your connection request limitation, LinkedIn will give you a flag. They'll let you know, hey, you're coming up on your weekly quota. We'll talk about this towards the end of this module, but what we don't want to do is make LinkedIn think that we are automating anything. You actually do put your account at risk of suspension or ban if you spam too many messages, connection requests, things like that. Again, we'll talk about ways to be really, really safe with that and how to do that. But just keep in mind that you don't want to log in tomorrow and go out and send 50 DMs that say the exact same thing. The other note is to set a reminder to yourself every 2 weeks to go through and delete any connection requests that have been pending for 2 weeks or more. LinkedIn can penalize you if you have too many outstanding, unaccepted connection requests. So you can go through, you can see who you've sent connection requests to. If they've been outstanding for more than 2 weeks, go ahead and delete those. Otherwise, it can hurt your reach and your engagement. If you need help knowing how to do that, just shoot me a message and I'll walk you through it. Okay, so we're within social selling and we are talking about our 5 different lead sources. So first, our profile viewers. Guys, profile viewers are the lowest hanging fruit for getting business on LinkedIn. Every morning, spend 15 minutes before your post goes live reviewing your recent profile viewers. Just go through, find the ones who fit your ICP, and send them a very simple message. Hey, saw you viewed my profile. Were you curious about my service, or were you just pulled over by a piece of content? If someone has interest in your services, they'll let you know. You're off to the races. If they were just pulled over by a piece of content, or if they say they just don't know, people will say that a lot of the time. Hey, I actually don't know why I stopped by your profile. You have an opportunity to further the conversation by asking questions, right? But the point is, you've already started that conversation with your ideal client. Now, the second lead source are people who comment on your content. Again, most daily commenters are not great leads. Most people showing up every day to comment are playing the LinkedIn game, and they're just trying to get views and reciprocal comments on their own content. Of course, you know your audience better than I do. You know which people to pitch, which people not to pitch. But just keep in mind that there's probably not a ton of value in spending a tremendous amount of time DMing all the people that show up and comment on your content from a leads perspective. If you just want to form relationships, great. You can get a lot of benefit out of that. I encourage you to do that. But if we're talking strictly leads, usually the best leads do not come from your commenters. Now, the exception to this is the commenter who shows up consistently and always mentions how they have a problem with the service you're talking about. If that happens, just go ahead and shoot them a quick message. Hey, I know we've known each other for a while here. Honestly, based on your comments, it seems like you could be a good fit for my service. Would you be open to taking a look at some more info? So I'll do this every now and then, when I talk about writing good hooks on LinkedIn, something like that. People will show up in my comments and they'll say, I struggle with hooks. I don't know why. This is great information. I mean, boom. For me, the door is wide open. I'll shoot them a message, see if they're interested in ghostwriting, if they want to join the masterclass, whatever it might be. But they're in your comments directly saying they have a pain point related to your service. Do not ignore that. Jump on that when it happens. Phantom Buster is an awesome free tool to scrape leads from the people who comment on your profile. Pop over to the community and check out the module I recorded on how to use Phantom Buster to track leads. You'll find that really useful. Okay, Sales Navigator prospects. Sales Nav is the most underused tool on LinkedIn. Most people are aware of it, but very few people actually know how to use it effectively. So again, go and review the 17-minute Sales Navigator Mastery to learn how to run lead gen lists in Sales Navigator to apply the social selling script options too, right? So the first step is running those lists. Once you have those lists built, you can really start to get some traction. And keep in mind, right, this is all about A/B testing. Test different scripts, see what works, ignore the stuff that doesn't, double down on the stuff that does. So these are 3 different ways, that you can reach out to people in Sales Nav from a social selling perspective. Hey, first name, just came across your profile. My service does blank for ICP, or my company does service for ICP. Let's connect if you're active here. Again, this isn't really a pitch. You're just trying to get them to accept that initial connection request. That's all you're trying to do. I've booked leads, booked calls directly from this message. Second thing you can do is bring up a specific thing, right? Hey, notice we have shared thing. This guy I reached out to and said, hey, I notice we both talk about real estate. Reaching out to connect if you're open to it. Boom. Booked a call just by sending that message. Third, you can reference a mutual connection. We talk about how to track mutual connections in that Sales Navigator mastery section, but use that, right? Hey, first name, notice we're both connected to XYZ person, reaching out to connect if you're open to it. Remember, all of these are just designed to get the person to accept or respond to your initial message. That's it, right? If you don't get that connection request domino accepted, you'll never move on to the next domino in the system. So all we're trying to do right off the bat with the social selling is get people to accept that connection request. My recording dropped, so hopefully this is relatively seamless. But the fourth option here is going to be finding ICP commenters on industry leaders, creators who are competitors of yours, or creators who are leaders in your ICP's industry. And I know this is going to sound a little confusing, but bear with me and I'll show you specific examples and it'll be easy and it'll make sense. But there are basically two good ways to do this. First, you can make a list of the top creators in your ICP's industry, the people who get tons of engagement. Then what you'll do is go to that creator's profile. You'll click on Show All on the other similar profiles on the right-hand side of the LinkedIn page. You'll open multiple tabs of these ICPs. You'll build a bookmark list of these ICPs. And then you're going to engage on those ICPs' content 4 days in a row, starting on Monday. On the fifth day, on the Friday of that week, you'll send a personalized and relevant request message to start a conversation with those people. And check out the Underground Growth Secrets PDF to learn how to build bookmarking lists. We'll also do this in the LinkedIn Leads Playbook section of the cohort, but worth taking a look at now to implement this. So here's what I mean. So Brandon Turner is ICP for me. He's a big real estate investor, right? Great White Buffalo. Would love to write for Brandon Turner at some point. 100,000 followers. Candidly, his content does not do nearly as well as it should, but that's neither here nor there. So what I would do is go to Brandon Turner. He's a big creator in my ICP. I'd go to the right-hand side to this More Profiles, and I'll click Show All. Now, obviously, some of these people are too big. Like, I'm not going to get in front of Kevin O'Leary, but some of these other people, Josh Dorkin, startup investor and advisor, might be worth me reaching out to. Mark Kuhn, CRE developer, right? Founder of CRE Recruiting, commercial real estate. That's what this stands for. So for me, could be an ICP. Real estate investor, global co-head of real estate at Blackstone's probably too big, but yeah, property management, real estate investment fund manager, multifamily properties nationwide. So what I would do is I would take all of these profiles. I'm not going to do it right now because it'll slow my computer down, but I would open all of these people's profiles in different tabs. And then I would go back here. I would create this bookmark list, which you can learn how to do right here. I would open that bookmark list every morning. I would go in, I would comment on these ICP's content, and then on Friday, I would send them a message. At that point, they've seen your face, they've seen you showing up on their posts, they are far more likely to respond to you. The other thing you can do is set aside 10 minutes, like at the end of your LinkedIn engagement hour, to scroll through the comments of top creators. So like if you're a lawyer, go find other top law creators on LinkedIn, people who get a ton of engagement. And what you'll see is that you might find your ICP in those comments a lot. And you might be able to offer a more cost-effective or maybe a more customized offer than some of these really, really big accounts. So for instance, this actually got me my first ghostwriting client like 3 years ago. So I was looking at the profile of a big writer in the finance space, and somebody commented on her post and said, "Hey, I'd love to learn more about your services." I sent that person a DM. I said, "Hey, I saw your comment on this account's post. I do a similar thing. Might be able to put together something that's more customized to what you need. Would you mind if I sent over some info?" So these are some specific ways you can hack the comments of other creators or use LinkedIn to build these different engagement lists to send DMs to. So your fifth option is warm connections who have turned cold. Again, go back through your DMs, rack your brains, find and unearth old conversations that you never followed up on. The initial contact here through social selling is nice and simple. Hey, I know 3 months ago we were talking about your need to create content online. I never followed up with you, entirely my fault. I'm actually opening up an opportunity for new clients in the next specific time frame. Were you able to get that problem taken care of, or were you still looking for a solution? Again, we'll talk about this a little bit, but anytime you can attach a time frame to a specific offer, urgency, scarcity, FOMO, we will harp on this throughout the LinkedIn Leads Masterclass. But giving people a reason to act is one of the most important things you can do in sales. Create offers, eliminate offers, put timeframes on things, put capacities on things. Look, even if you're doing something like trying to raise capital or trying to raise money, right? People don't act unless you give them a reason to act. So create those reasons to act. We'll talk about, again, how to do that more in depth later on, but very, very important. So that's the gist of social selling, right? That's how you can engage all 5 of those lead sources with social selling. Now, proof selling. Proof selling is generally best for results-driven offerings, established businesses with case studies, something like my business where I can show the results I've gotten for my clients, and very good for direct communicators. Like if you have a background in sales and you're very comfortable and that's your sales style, right? Challenger sale, things like that. Proof selling can be really effective. So the initial engagement for proof selling is very simple and can be applied to all 5 of those different lead sources that we just talked about. You basically break them out into 2 categories. It's best applied to Sales Navigator prospects, but again, can realistically be used with all 5 of those lead sources as well. Beautiful. So proof selling is best for results-driven offers, established businesses with case studies, things like my ghostwriting business, where I can go to a client and show them the exact results I've gotten for other people, or direct communicators. If you have a background in sales and you're very comfortable with it, maybe you're a challenger salesperson, these people tend to have a lot of success with proof selling, especially if the offer is aligned for proof selling. So proof selling can be broken out into 2 simple categories. It's generally best applied to Sales Navigator prospects, but realistically, you can have a lot of success using proof selling with profile viewers and with commenters as well, some of the other commenting ideas that we talked about. So the 2 categories for proof selling are the case study category and the no case study category. So you can apply this regardless of where you're at in your business. So first, the case study. All you're going to do is blast client results to people who fit your ICP. That's it, right? Here's what mine looks like. Hey, real estate CEO. Last year, I helped a commercial real estate founder book calls with 191 accredited investors, raise $1.5 million in capital, and grow from 4,000 to 20,000 followers through ghost-written LinkedIn content. Would you be open to hearing more about how we did that? Right. So what I'm doing here is I'm showing my case study. I'm showing the results I've gotten. I am 100% pitching this guy without knowing much about his business, other than the fact that he fits my ICP and he looks or she looks like somebody that I can get results for, right? That's all it is. Yes, I'm pitching, but if I do this with a volume approach, I am going to eventually hit people who are interested in my service. And because I have the results to back it up, I will book calls from this DM. It is a guarantee with the volume. This is one of the most effective DMs you can send. Now, if you don't have a case study, that's okay. You can borrow authority from other people. So, hey, financial advisor, CEO, have you heard of Mondo Salavanti? Mondo's one of the biggest financial advisor creators on LinkedIn. He's often written about how LinkedIn is his biggest lead gen source for new AUM. I'm a ghostwriter. I worked in finance for 6 years. I put together this specific piece of value to show you what the first 30 days of your content would look like. Worth a conversation, right? If that financial advisor is interested in ghostwritten content, I've now taken somebody else's social proof that's not actually one of my competitors, but one of their competitors, shown them how well that person is doing, and then created an offer to him or her based around the results of somebody else. So again, get creative with this. If you're looking to raise capital, for instance, which a lot of my clients are, your initial message could show the results you've gotten from investors on previous deals. The idea is to paint the outcome and position yourself as the mechanism for achieving that outcome. Providing a free tool or customized piece of value is a huge leg up if you don't have a case study. We'll talk a little bit about what sorts of tools you can create as well. So here, again, you are relying on the social proof of other people or other companies to sell. If you're looking to attract investors or your offer isn't service-based, the evergreen sequence that we're about to talk about might be the best option for you. So Domino 2C, our third option. So we have social selling, we have proof selling, and we have our evergreen sequence. The evergreen sequence is best for a high volume approach, best if you're outsourcing to a virtual assistant or if you're using an automation tool, and good for people who just prefer a very systematic, efficient approach that doesn't have to be hyper personalized. We'll talk about how you can still personalize it. But basically, the evergreen sequence is a time-based system that automatically moves new connections through a messaging flow. This is the exact sequence that you're about to see right here that helped my financial advisor client close 15 to 20 mil in AUM strictly through LinkedIn messaging. So like we said, it's time-based. So the first message we are going to send as soon as they accept our initial connection request, right? So we're going to say, hey, thanks for connecting. I am in XYZ role at XYZ company. You don't necessarily have to mention the company if it doesn't have cachet. If they don't know who it is, you can just leave it out. But basically, I specialize in helping you with specific offer, share a quick, timely insight about your industry, something that shows that you wrote this recently. Most client types I work with using social proof find that addressing primary pain point can result in primary benefit, but they still don't address it. It still stays on the back burner. They still let that pain point fester. What I do is simple, value statement for target client, allowing them to achieve results. Any interest in a brief call? Would love to see if my experience with other specific client would be relevant to your situation. So again, we are pitching right off the bat, right? We're showing our value, we're showing the transformation, we are being specific in a generic way, right? Like this message is clearly going to be written only for your ICP, but you're discussing specific enough pain points and specific enough transitions that it still feels like it's personalized, especially if you can create that industry insight sentence that means the same thing to all sorts of people across your industry. Let's say, for instance, if I were targeting tech employees or something like that, I could say something along the lines of, hey, just given the recent layoffs in tech, I've been getting a lot of interest from people who want to figure out how to build other income streams, right? And that's specific enough and timely enough to make them feel like it was personally written for them. And then the magic here and the magic in everything is in the follow-up. So you'll send a second message if they don't respond, right? 24 hours after you send that first message. I'm not going to read through all this. You can read through all this on your own time, but essentially you're showing specific results that you've gotten for clients. And then the third message, if they don't respond, you're still sending this third message, sending it 72 hours after that second message. Hey, thanks again for connecting. Tell them you won't reach back out, right? But feel free to keep me in mind whenever you're looking to achieve your value proposition. The value here, the reason this message actually works really well, and you'll start to see this the more that you do it, but this is probably weirdly the one that I myself and my clients get the most responses to is that third one. Again, it's urgency, scarcity, FOMO. If you take away the offer from people, people want the offer again, right? So I don't find a ton of value in following up beyond that third message. You can play with it. I know a lot of people swear by sending like five, six, seven messages, even if there is no response. My mindset has generally been, if I've sent them three messages and they haven't responded, they're probably genuinely not interested. But you can make this third message, even more powerful. If you get really good at creating new offers, creating new pieces of content, things like webinars or opportunities where you're only accepting two, three, four clients, you can use this third message and change this line into something that invokes a lot of scarcity, a lot of urgency, a lot of FOMO. The point is, you want that last message that you send to be something that makes that person feel like you are going away and your offer is going away. If you do this right, that last message is going to be the one that is going to book you the most calls because your ICP is going to feel like what you have to offer will no longer be available to them unless they act. So here you go. Thanks again for connecting. I won't reach out unless I hear back from you, but feel free to keep me in mind if you ever want to. That's really still not very good urgency, but it's enough. I'd be interested in talking, as some of the things you mentioned have been on my mind. Do you have a Calendly link handy to book something? So again, the evergreen sequence works best when you have a targeted but still sizable sales navigator list. When you want to focus on volume without sacrificing quality, and then when you want a consistent, proven system that requires minimal customization. Again, the right approach depends on a lot of different things, right? Both primarily your offer and your personality. Social selling is great if you excel at relationship building and have a complex or high ticket offer. Proof selling is great if you have impressive case studies and a straightforward solution. And the evergreen sequence is awesome if you want a systematic, time-based approach that works at scale. You can mix your approaches, based on lead types. For example, social selling for warm leads and the evergreen sequence for cold connections. Okay, so those are going to be our three different approaches. I encourage you to test each of them and see what works best for you. But regardless of which approach you take, social selling, proof selling, evergreen sequences, at some point, people are going to respond to you, right? And once people respond to you, now the ball is kind of in your court, right? You got to figure out how to get them from that response to that close. And so what we're going to do in that sense is go to Domino 3, which is the response bridge, right? So after you send that initial message, you'll receive different types of responses. How you handle those responses determines where you move on, right, within the Domino system. So before we dive into the specific bridges, understand that most responses are going to fall into four categories: direct interest, passive interest, content engagement, or deflection. So how to handle each one, right? Direct interest responses. These are your warmest leads, people who respond to you and say, yep, I'm interested. So here, the response bridge strategy is move directly into the discovery questions, right? But of course, we don't want to not listen to people. So an example of something we might say, you reach out to somebody, they say, yes, I'm interested. Great. Thanks for letting me know. Most people in your position, again, we're creating social proof, come to me because they're struggling either with this or with that. Which resonates more with your situation, right? We don't want to jump immediately to booking a call. We want to be a little bit consultative, and asking a this or that question starts to help us narrow down on their specific pain point so we can more properly address what they're looking at. This is another example bridge that we could use. Again, just trying to understand their specific issue, their specific pain point. So that is the direct interest response. Those are awesome. They're not quite as common, right? Passive interest responses. These are people that are like kind of curious, but not explicitly asking about your service. So they might just respond to you and say, "Hey, thanks for reaching out. Good to connect with you, whatever it is." A lot of people will see those responses and they will use it as an excuse to not continue the conversation. They'll say, "Oh, this person isn't interested," and they'll let the conversation die there. That is not you. That is not what we are doing here, right? Anytime they respond, and we know even if they don't respond, you are going to send another message. You are going to follow up, right? So here, the bridge strategy is to use curiosity driven questions that tie into their business goals. So, for example, even if they say something innocuous as interesting content, great, glad it resonated. I noticed you're in X industry slash position. Most people in your role I talk to are focused on growing X, implementing Y. Is that similar to what you're working on? Right? Or I'm curious, how are you currently handling specific problem? I've seen a lot of different approaches in your industry. So again, curiosity driven questions that tie to their business goals just to continue the conversation. The third type of response you might get is a content engagement response. I get these quite a bit. These are people who you'll reach out to and they'll say, "Yeah, I just, saw one of your posts," or I just like your content. Cool. Okay. So let's use that to bridge it to the next step in the conversation. Thanks. Always great to connect with other people who are interested in what I'm talking about. I'm curious, since you're in specific industry, how do you currently apply this topic to your business? One thing I like to do is kind of use this curiosity angle or talk to people in a way that feels like I'm genuinely asking for their thoughts or their opinion or feedback. Hey, like genuinely very curious. It helps me to know, how do people in your industry look at the thing that I solve, and just get them talking about it, right? The goal is just to continue that conversation. Fourth are deflection responses. These are just the people that try to shut you down. All good. Don't need any help right now. Maybe in the future. Keep pushing, right? Keep pushing. That's what I always do. Completely understand. Again, position it as a favor. What are you currently using for the solution? It's just helpful for me to know what other people in your industry are doing, right? You might not transition these people into immediate calls, but you can continue to nurture and foster those relationships and add them to your CRM for later on down the road when you have a specific offer to reach out with. So, key principles for successful bridging: mirror their energy. If they give you quick responses, you give them quick responses back. If they share a bunch of detail, match that level of detail. Um, Try to tie things as much as you can into the business impact. Every bridge that you have should connect to an outcome of some sort that your ICP is looking for. Focusing on their goals as opposed to your service is really, really effective. Transition phrases are really powerful, right? I'm curious. I noticed. That's interesting because, and you can see I keep harping on this. Most people in your position, right? A lot of people know that you're trying to sell to them. So, saying what I've seen is never as powerful as what your competitors are seeing. Open-ended questions, this or that questions, things that get them to open up are selling 101, right? Try to avoid the yes or no questions as much as possible. So once you've successfully bridged that conversation, there are a couple of different places that you can go. You can look to add value, just kind of depends on how far down the road you are with the client. Or you can look into, the multiple path progression for booking a call. So keep in mind, the goal of the response bridge is not to sell. It's just to create a natural transition to a deeper conversation about their business needs. You're just trying to continue that conversation, get them to open up and talk to you a little bit more. The most common mistakes, I had trouble with these for a long time. I think I lost a lot of opportunity with potential clients because I used to jump to sell really, really quickly. Like I would get a response and I'd drop a Calendly link. that does not come off as consultative. It comes off as, somebody who thinks they can help everybody as opposed to figuring out whether or not they can actually help somebody. So I saw my call rate jump once I started focusing on learning more about people's businesses. Weak transitions, avoid those generic responses, um, ignoring their cues, just bulldozing through. If they say something, acknowledge the thing they say. Don't just bulldoze to the next step. And then overcomplicating things. I think people overthink sales a lot of the time. So just keep it very simple. Focus on one single clear question. Don't ask 8 questions in one message. One simple thing, get them talking, acknowledge their concerns, show you how you address those concerns, get the call booked. I love this reframe. This is a great follow on Twitter if you're interested in learning sales techniques. But my job is to convince versus my job is to discover, right? We're always discovering, trying to disqualify, right? We're trying to see if people are a fit for our services or not. The quicker we know that they're not, the quicker we can disqualify them. If we convince people, we will not make sales. If we discover that we can help people, we will. So Domino 4 is add value, and you won't use this every single time, right? But it can be a really, really good way to get people to kind of feel indebted to you almost. So I don't like the term value. I think it's too nebulous. Value can mean a lot of different things. But in this instance, within our system, value is something you give away for free that helps a client with their problem. So in an ideal world, this piece of value is a lead magnet that you designed yourself. And we'll talk about how to create lead magnets. If you give something of value to people for free, their natural response is to think, wow, think about how good their paid offer must be. But value doesn't necessarily have to be something you created. It can be a study or article from your industry, a video or a podcast that relates to their pain point, an anecdote that shares how you helped a similar client solve that problem. Don't be afraid to give away a tremendous amount of value for free. And you'll do this within the DMs, really at any time that you feel like you can wedge your foot in a little bit more with somebody you can help. The whole idea with adding value in the DMs and specific pieces of value is that the human law of reciprocity suggests that people will feel indebted to you if you offer them something that genuinely helps them. So giving away legitimately valuable insights or resources for free significantly increases the odds that they'll be willing to get a call on you, be willing to get on a call with you or take a look at your offer. So, for instance, one thing I'll do whenever I get into these conversations and I get across that response bridge and I get these people talking, I've created a number of different lead magnets over the last couple of years. And I'll go through and I'll say, hey, usually I charge for this, or I've stopped giving this away to people for free, but thought you might find it useful. I'll drop that lead magnet in the chat. It's a specific concrete piece of value. And I'm not going to say 9 times out of 10, but probably 6 or 7 times out of 10, if I can get to this point in the conversation where I'm able to provide them concrete value, I'm going to book a call pretty much within the next couple of messages because they're ready to go, right? They think it's cool. They appreciate it. You can go from there. So the last domino that you're going to push over is the multiple path progression. So, you've gotten the person to respond to you. They're talking about their problems. You've offered them something that's genuinely valuable. At this point, you know a little bit about them. You know whether or not you can help. And you've demonstrated that you're listening and you're trying to help, right? You're not just selling. If your value add has been received positively, you are well within your rights to ask this person to take the next step. Now, the key is to make that next step easy. I know this is a personal thing, but I hate calls. I will do anything I can to avoid getting on a Zoom call. If I have interest in the service somebody is selling me, and they'll tell me, the only thing I can do is get on a 30-minute Zoom call, I won't move forward. Maybe I'm alone in that regard, but I doubt it. The point I'm making here is you should have various next steps available, right? You shouldn't necessarily offer various next steps. You should only offer the one that works best for you, which I think for a lot of people is a call, but you should have various next steps available. You don't want to let a prospect off the hook because you're unable to present your offer in a way that they like to or they want to interact with it. So it's critical to make that next step easy. And again, it's critical that you pull on the levers, urgency and FOMO. So for most people, your next step from the DMs is going to be a call. Like that is just how it works. When trying to book calls with prospects, I know a lot of people, a lot of my clients that come to me, seem to be making the same few mistakes that I think creates a lot of friction and doesn't get people on the phone. One is sending a Calendly link, and two is booking a long call. So instead, I always advocate for offering a few times in the very near term, immediate future, like in the next 48 hours. So here's a sample of something I might send. Are you open to me putting 10 minutes on your calendar, 15 minutes on your calendar? I could see my service helping you via benefit. You can add this optional line in, right? I have one more spot open for a client in specific time frame. Want to make sure to get you in if we're a fit. And then I could do tomorrow at times or 2 days from now at times. The reason I'm averse to sending a Calendly link, I know it seems really innocuous, but a big part of the idea of selling on LinkedIn and selling on the internet in general is the reduction of friction, right? The more friction we introduce to the overall equation, the more likely we are to lose a client along the path. So if I drop a Calendly link, they click on the Calendly, they review my Calendly, and there are no times that work in the next week or so, there's a decent chance they're just going to drop off and maybe they'll forget about it and maybe they won't get back to me. But if I continue it via the chat, via the conversation until we lock down a time, then I can send them a calendar invite. I can put the onus on me. I'm not requesting that they do it. To me, this has always been more effective than dropping a Calendly link where people can drop off. So, this is why I like phrasing the message this way. Are you open to me putting 10 minutes on your calendar? Like I said, it puts the labor on you, not on the prospect. Just make sure to get their email address. If they say yes, it's easy to forget to. We want to always promote benefits with copywriting 101. I could see my service helping you via benefit, not what I do, but how it helps you. Again, feel free to insert a case study there if relevant, just a quick proof point to show what you've done for other people. The urgency, scarcity, FOMO angle. I have one more spot open for a client in XYZ timeframe. Want to make sure to get you in if we're a fit. Placing deadlines on things is very important. You don't want to be 100% available 24/7. People need to know that there are consequences to not working with you now. If we're a fit is intentional language too. It suggests that you're vetting your prospect. You want to do everything you can to position yourself as the prize, as opposed to putting your prospect on a pedestal. Again, I could do tomorrow at specific times or 2 days from now at specific times. Once you get to this stage with people, you want to move fast. I've canceled so many meetings that I've booked like a couple of weeks in the future because by the time the meeting rolls around, I no longer feel the desire, no longer feel the urgency, no longer feel the scarcity. And I wonder why I'm spending 30 minutes with this person, so get them on, make them quick, just move to that next step as quickly as possible. If your prospect is averse to having a call like I am, just have a simple one pager or like a written response that details your offer, ready to go, and flip it over to them. So a couple of hacks on LinkedIn within the DM Domino system. LinkedIn is awesome because you can basically force people into your funnel by sending them a connection request and getting them to accept. You can significantly increase the odds they interact with your messages by just ramping up the personalization, right? And there are a couple of different ways that you can do that. The first is voice notes. You can only leave voice notes on the LinkedIn mobile app. You can't do it from desktop as far as I've found. And LinkedIn voice notes also cap out at 1 minute, but That's fine because you shouldn't be leaving voice notes longer than a minute anyways. Voice notes are an awesome, awesome, awesome pattern interrupt. So when you go back and forth via text all the time on LinkedIn, it can start to feel monotonous after a certain point. People get fatigued and they zone out. Voice notes are great to interrupt that pattern or to restart a conversation where somebody hasn't responded to you that seemed promising. If they stop responding to you for 24, 48 hours, jump in with a quick voice note, right? Drop them a message can be a really, really effective way um, to get them to pay attention and convert them from a DM into a call. Second are videos. If you want to go a step further than voice notes, you can record a quick video of you talking to the prospect and upload it right there to the DMs. This really, again, it takes effort, but if you're willing to put in this effort, you are going to stand out from everybody out there. Hyper personalization is going to get you responses and results. So we talked about a couple of these things, but I'll run over them real quickly, right? The domino effect principles for following up. Always reference something specific from a previous conversation you had with them. Try to be as personalized as possible. Like I said before, keep things casual and conversational. Write like you're texting. Don't write like you're a robot. Like I said, I send a lot of short texts in a row, more than I do one long text. Big blocks of text, people can be kind of averse to. Um, it's all going to vary whether you're selling, via social selling or proof selling. But just experiment with this sort of stuff, be as human as possible. Using natural urgency triggers. We'll talk about this time and time again, guys, but mapping out my Q2 client roster before my rates increase, while I still have this opening, before I commit to another project. You never want to lie, never lie, but always find a reason to invoke the urgency, invoke the scarcity. And then, of course, alternate between value adds and soft asks. You don't always want to be pitching, don't always want to be selling, but if you're providing the value, the opportunity to pitch, the opportunity to sell will come naturally. Look, the goal isn't to be clever or to craft the perfect message. It's just to be human, be helpful, stay on top of mind until the timing is right. If you keep a swipe file of good conversations that have converted, you can do a couple of things with that. One, you can review them to remind yourself that what you do works. And two, you'll start to learn what works for you. And you can double down on the successful approaches and pare down the ones that don't seem to be working. And then the other domino I like is the re-engagement domino. This is going to be really effective if you've been, again, on LinkedIn for a while and you've been having conversations with people. Go back through your DMs, right? Just because a conversation has gone cold for the last 30 days does not mean it's dead. Like I go back and restart conversations with prospects that I lost all the time. Whenever I have a new offer coming out, I'll re-engage them. Simple way to do that. Hey, I know we talked about this pain point a little while back. Two things. One, I totally dropped the ball. I didn't follow up with you. My bad. Of course, that's if if you didn't respond. Two, I just helped another person in your industry achieve specific result. Not sure if you're still looking for help with that pain point, but if you are, would love to share what worked for them. Or if you are, would love to introduce my new offer to you. Either way, saw something that you recently posted about, thought that was cool, right? You're not interrupting your day. You're helping them solve a problem they already told you have. As long as you keep that in mind, your follow-ups will never feel pushy. So creating urgency and FOMO naturally is a little tricky, but what you'll want to do, and you'll get good at this, the more you do it, is create new offers and sunset old ones. Sunset also just means kill, right? So have new offers, kill old offers, make noise about it every time that you do. And when you kill an old offer, when you sunset an old offer, do it. Don't just say you're going to eliminate something. Actually take it away. You can always bring it back in a repackaged format in the future, but you don't want to develop a reputation as somebody who creates fake urgency or fake scarcity. Running limited time offers is really, really good. And then things like time sensitive webinars, LinkedIn live sessions, whatever it is. The last thing you want to do is for people to always think you're available. People never really act without a reason to act. This is, one of the most important levers that you can understand and learn how to pull. I think a lot of people will look at this and will say, well, my business doesn't lend itself to urgency, or my business doesn't lend itself to scarcity or FOMO, or I don't have an offer. My offer is evergreen and I can't, I can't put time constraints on it. I can't create that urgency. If you feel that way, like reach out to me. Let me know. Let's have a conversation about this. We can absolutely, without question, 100% add urgency and FOMO into any business, any offer, whatever you have. I promise there are ways to do it. So feel free to reach out to me if you have questions about that. I created a customized CRM for the DM Domino system. So feel free to pop that open and use that. Again, tracking conversations, guys, and following up with people are the name of the game. If you only send one message and they don't respond and you never follow back up, this will not work, right? So you need to track people. You need to make sure you follow up with them. You need to hit them with at least 3 messages. The magic is in the follow-up. Okay, so weeks 1 and 2, here are our implementation plans. What I want you to do is grab a pen and paper right now and make 10 slots. 5 for Monday through Friday, week 1, 5 for Monday through Friday, week 2. You can also add Saturday and Sunday if you want to. It can only help to send more messages. Next to each day, I want you to write a number between 10 and 20. You can change this number up. So now your paper should look something like this. Monday, 11, Tuesday, 17. So you'll see I have a different number between 10 and 20 every day for the next 2 weeks. Now those numbers correspond to how many DMs you are going to send every day. I didn't say how many DMs you're going to try to send every day. This is how many DMs you are going to send every single day. Now, the reason we vary it, which we alluded to earlier, is because LinkedIn hates automation and spam, and we don't want to blast the exact same message to 20 people every day, 7 days a week. Changing things up in the frequency of how many messages we're sending lowers the risk that LinkedIn will flag your account for any reason. So a quick sidebar, it would be really disingenuous to not acknowledge automation. I know a lot of people, tons of people who either use virtual assistants to send DMs or they use third-party softwares, Dripify, Zopto, Willaxy, to mass send DMs. And those services will actually do this automatically for you. This is what we're doing manually, but it will randomize the number of DMs it sends every single day to make sure you're not flagging LinkedIn spam filters. And look, I know these services work really well for people. I've seen them work really well. They're viable, they're legitimate. Like you can have a lot of success with third-party tools in sending automated DMs. But I do have to acknowledge that it is against LinkedIn's terms of service, and you do risk getting your account suspended or banned by using automated DM services. Keep in mind, thousands, probably tens, hundreds of thousands of people use these services. These services openly promote on LinkedIn. It's kind of an open secret, a wink and a nod. LinkedIn is very aware that these automation tools exist and are used. So I can't, in good conscience, advocate for it or against it, because I don't want to be the reason that something goes haywire and all of a sudden your account gets suspended. But these services exist. Many people use them. Many people have success with them. It is a great way to get your pitch out there to a lot of people at scale. So your mileage may vary, but it is critical to acknowledge that these exist. So if you have questions about those, again, I'm very well versed in all of them. Feel free to reach out to me. I don't use them personally. I do everything manually, but I have plenty of clients who do. Okay, so we are done. What you're going to do now is go to LinkedIn tomorrow. You are going to look at your number. You are going to mark down a tally on a piece of paper every time you send a DM. And you are not going to stop sending DMs until you've hit your daily tally mark. Log back in, do it again tomorrow. Again, DMs are a volume game. Your goal is to start 35 to 40 conversations with your ICP in these first 2 weeks. Of course, not everyone is going to respond, so volume is your best friend when it comes to starting these conversations. If you need help creating your DM scripts, guys, feel free to reach out to me. That's what I'm here for. Any questions, feel free to send them to me or drop them in the community. And I look forward to seeing you in the next module.